And now we remove only this part using this model, which is the quadrant tracer. I will consider my function as my conjunct, my macroeconomic curve. Could be my liquid money curve, could be my investment saving curve. And then I will observe that I have oscillation. I have failure, I must interrupt considering the new tracer model as distribution of values binary if identity by tracers. If we have a duplicity of tracer, we must interrupt and audit this. And this will put ourselves inside a very specific relation, as you know, microeconomy, supply and demand, which will point to a very specific cluster of operation. On present time is the digital payment. It's something like this, as you can observe. I will have my function as investment saving function, which has associated with the variable exchanged market based on the IP as estimative. And I got failures observed by the relation and the behavior of the economy, pointing to the possible intention as do not have the payment of someone else and had the need as investment based on the higher level as operative volume between the investment saving, which has operations inside as supply and demand, with very peculiar heads named debits and credits. And we will check that this will be here. My function, investment saving, associated with the variable exchanged market by the IT, which puts the volume higher, but having oscillation inside the curves, which is the same oscillation as the relation as supply and demand, which patterns as full and entire number with period as repeating decimal pattern leads ourselves to the Benford model to have the distribution a sequence of periods pointing to clusters with much more attraction for this kind of model, that is a model as conjunctural interface looks like. Then we will have the relation between supply and demand considering specific markets presented at my investment saving curve, which will have the need as IT and digital payment and technology, and this will point ourselves as we could have in the relation between the debt and the credit, as we could get in the very part of the first video, this relation here, the debt and the credit that will be prevented, I would say, at the very first moment, considering the investment saving cure, to do not have this same risk at the liquidity money curve that you allow your speech as offering fake money and similar ways, especially considering the association by silence of all central banks, because I'm not a central bank member or a central bank of anything. I'm just a regular citizen threatened, menaced, and which did independent international procedure based on the audit, which must be like this, as part of industrial activity as white label and got evidence and proved as a local interference at the international activity, despite the local area had no legitimacy to do nothing by the dependence and integrated failure associated at the international financial system by criminal purpose points to the transnational organized crime. and we presented arguments and elements by the law and the Constitution to shut those variables down and expose how the nepotism is the variance of corruption and how the protection of nepotism variables is the intention to have the continuity of corruption as corruption conjuncture pulled by center of interest public budget as interface to achieve the treasury trending to negative one as trending analysis. And now the main interest is driving by the relation as contraction of liquidity money and investment safe, putting the balance of payments in an elastic behavior, which maybe is having a possible risk, and this is a risk analysis, to do not have the payment in an international area by specific conjunctures and only having the payment of specific players. I mean, you will set and ranking a preference of payments. It means that you are in bankruptcy, Brazil. Is this confirmed? You must be, clear with everybody inside the market that you will do operations. If you do operations on bear markets and bull market, east, west, and middle east as center, you must offer this, but I'm not part of the government, I'm not part of anything, I'm just a regular citizen living in Brazil, but doing nothing as Brazil. We'll take a look at our constitution considering the integrated failure as annual budget, a systematic thing. All ex-presidents in the period on the review 1988 up to 2028, protection of 2024 Europe and 2028 America must be under review. They can be all sent to jail by the silence transfers as bubble of a logical gap from each period, and we have the silence as continuous and long life checks at the judicial system considering the Supreme Court. The silence is for sure a proof about your criminal intention, another one as variable. Article 76 of our Constitution, the government is made by the President and their ministry. Are they able to offer this information, confirm or deny, based on Article 174? Why you didn't have the talk about all those mistakes until this time? Why you had so much will against my anti-crime research and so much lack of will complained by the OECD as accomplishment with the regulatory premise? Are you reliable offender? One consequence of this not reliable behavior is the exchange rate fixed by the index US dollar skyrocket, and we are charging you $33 trillion. Have a nice week. And